Kasim with Solutions 8, and today I want to show you how we go through and audit a campaign. I'm going to show you a light audit. I won't show you like the complete thing from top to bottom because I think it'll bore you to death. But just to kind of give you a sense as to how to scratch the surface and start to see what's going on. So if you're looking at a brand new Google campaign, or you just want to see what somebody else has done for you, and dip in and make sure that everything's kosher, this is hopefully the content for you. So I'm going to use this particular campaign just as an example. So logging in, before I pay attention to any of the campaign ad groups, any of that stuff, I'm going to go up here into tools and settings. And the very first thing I want to see is conversions. Here's why. If you're not tracking conversions properly, then all the other data is moot. As Joey would say, it's a cow's opinion. It's irrelevant. And you would be shocked, or maybe you wouldn't be, at how many campaigns we come across when we do these evaluations that aren't tracking conversions at all. And of the campaigns that are tracking conversions, how many are tracking conversions incorrectly? So if you're not tracking conversions properly, I don't trust your data. And that's really important for you to know. So make sure you expand your timeline to whatever you think is relevant. We obviously don't want to go all time here. This campaign's been around forever. So I might go back to, let's say, the beginning of the year if I want to get sort of a broad snapshot. Quick pro tip: anytime you enter a new frame into Google Ads, you want to look for two particular things in terms of making sure you're looking at all the available data. You want to look at your dates and filters. So I jump into conversions and I check my date. There's no filter applied. You can see status all enabled, which is, if I wanted to say all, I could do that. But I actually just kind of look at all enabled because I want to see what we're currently working with. So dates and filters are checked. We look good. Now, this is a sandbox campaign that we use actually internally. So some of this stuff, it's actually a really good example. But what I'm going to look at is the conversion action. And the conversion actions, the person setting up the campaign gets the name of the conversion. So with any luck, these are robust, just in terms of nomenclature. And you can actually see here, this is really well done. Free evaluation action plan, free submission, form submission, enhanced, starter, essential. So you can see that we're testing 3 different prices here. Here's the form submission contact page. So I'm testing conversions on, different forms, different sections. And then we can see the source of those conversions. You want to be careful, and you're looking for a few key points. Website is great because it means it's actually set up inside a Google Tag Manager. So this is potentially what you want to see. If you see analytics, not to say you can't use analytic-based conversions, but just to say that you don't want to rely solely on analytics. That can be kind of a dangerous place to be. And then if you see import, so we've got import calls. They're manual importation. And this is actually a more advanced feature. So if somebody's using imported conversions, it means that they're capturing data that Google doesn't necessarily see, like a chat or a phone call, scoring it, and then manually importing it back into the Google machine. So that's something that you'd like to see as long as they're using it. Categorically, this is just for you to be able to filter your conversions. The tracking status is important because if none of your conversions are working, and again, you can see some of these were enabled, disabled, but if none of your conversions are working, then we clearly have a problem. But as long as you have conversions that are working, and those are the conversions that are recording, that we're utilizing inside of the campaign, then you're in good shape. Count is important. Do we want to count one or every? If it's e-commerce, if you're selling something, we're counting every. So, here's a local conversion action for every website visit. Obviously we're trying to track how often people are coming back to the site. Every's fine. But if you're doing lead generation, you only want to count it once, because if somebody fills out a form and then they come back and fill out that same form, we don't want to attribute that same person as an additional conversion value. Click-through conversion window, I like 90 days for most things, with the exception of vanity metrics. So, for our local website actions, 30 days is fine. But for, most other things, I think a 90-day conversion window value is appropriate because it gives you the opportunity to see your conversion path on a broader scale. Including conversions is really scary. This is especially scary for e-commerce. If you're using Shopify will actually create your conversion actions for you, but it includes every single individual conversion action as a conversion. So for example, add to cart becomes a conversion. So if somebody adds a product to the shopping cart, then that now Google's like, oh, we won. They bought something. So be careful about what's included in add to conversions. Repeat rate will let you know, if we're double counting conversions, like people that are coming back and repeating those conversions, not double counting necessarily. total number of conversions you've had inside of this window, and then start looking at the conversions that are happening, more often than others. And I can see an inactive tag here, so that might be something that I'm going to go look at. The other thing that I always do is I'll use Google's Tag Manager to just make sure that GTM is installed on the site and they're actually tracking conversions properly. So depending on how deep I want to dive. But that's it. I've got my conversion actions. So that's item number one. From there, and again, this will be a cursory overview, but we're going to go over the campaigns. And before I dive into any of the campaign collateral, what I really want to look at is campaign settings. So let's take a look at, what's a good one? So here's an enabled campaign. And inside of the enabled campaign, I'm going to go to campaign settings. And now I'm looking for a couple of things. The goal isn't quite as relevant because this is going to be Google-driven guidance. So don't worry if you have a goal selected that you don't feel is applicable, as long as the person hasn't been taking the guidance that Google's offering based off of that goal. The networks that you're opted into, this is really critically important. Search campaigns should be opted into the search network only. Display campaigns should be opted into the display network. Google is going to recommend that you run campaigns to both search and display. It's a catastrophic error. Don't do it. Your location targeting will show you where you want your ads to show up, and make sure that you're targeting the locations that you actually run your ads in. Languages is interesting. In search, most people think, oh, I should target English if I'm going after English speakers. It's not true. Your keywords are in English. So if they're searching in English, then your ads can show up. Which in search, you want to target all languages. In display, you want to target English so that you don't show up on like a Spanish language site, unless you're targeting Spanish, in which case it's vice versa. Target the language of interest in display. All languages is the rule for search, because you take care of the language issue inside of your keyword campaign. Budget, make sure that your budget is set according to something that you feel is palatable. Again, when you're auditing a campaign, you want to be careful as to what people have done. If the budget is too low, then they're not getting the visibility that you want. If the budget is too high, the hope here is that they're monitoring it so that they can make adjustments as is appropriate. And then our bidding strategy. This might be the most important facet of the settings. Have they chosen a bidding strategy that makes sense? And you'll notice Google, in some instances, will actually hide bidding strategies from you. It didn't do it here, but there'll be a little link that'll say choose less, I forget what it is, choose ill-advised bidding strategy or something like passive aggressive like that. So manual CPC with enhanced enabled is where you're going to get the most control and potentially the most visibility. You want to be really careful with things like maximize conversions or maximize conversion value, because if you haven't already produced conversions, you're telling Google to go get more of something that you haven't properly canvassed or identified. That's especially true if your conversions are being poorly reported. If you're reporting on a bunch of false positives, Google's going to go give you more false positives. So go to school on your bid strategies. Every one of them is viable if you have the right use case. So there's not one bid strategy that's better than others, but if you're just getting started, I like manual CPC because it doesn't force you into Google's algorithm. It lets you see what the organic ecosystem is doing. If you have really well canvassed key phrases, if you feel like I'm real tight with my key phrase game, and it's already proven to be successful, then you might want to play target impression share or maximize clicks. So there's different ways and reasons to go about your bidding strategy. And other than that, we don't really need a start and end date. And so at this point, if I'm happy with the settings, then what I might do is now I'm going to go look at the campaign. And I'm actually going to just start here top to bottom. So looking at this particular campaign, we'll look at the ad groups, just make sure that I like the way that these are broken up. And the structure of the ad group makes sense to me. They're breaking things up thematically in a manner that's aligned with my business. If you have 5 core services, you might want to have one ad group for each of those services. Auction Insights is going to show us who we're competing against, and then what the overlap rate is. What's really important here is if you see a bunch of people in Auction Insights that you don't feel are your competitors, that's a red flag that you might not be bidding correctly. So just make sure that you're paying attention to something like this instead of an audit. Ads and extensions. There's a best practice in ads. You want to run 2 expanded text ads and 1 responsive ad for every single ad group. So choose the ad group and look at this particular ad group, for example. And then make sure that I have at least 2 expanded text ads. Here's an expanded text ad. Here's an expanded text ad. Here's a responsive ad. And for this split test, it looks like I'm doing the job correctly. Inside of extensions, let me go back to the overarching campaign. Sorry. You want to make sure that they're using as many extensions as is applicable for your business. So, you might, location extension might not be applicable. But if it is, make sure you have a location extension installed. Landing pages, I'm not going to worry about. Search or keywords, you want to make sure that your search terms are relevant. You have a negative keyword profile that is being updated and is robust. And then check your search terms. Make sure that everything here is relevant to your business. If you're paying for terms that aren't relevant to your business, then this is a poor functioning campaign. Audiences is going to be really hyper dependent on the type of campaign that you're running. Sometimes building out robust audiences is important. Sometimes it's not. Same thing with exclusions. Demographics, I'm not really going to pay attention to. I don't love demographic-based bid adjustments for campaigns that haven't been running for a long time and have a lot of data. We talked about the settings. Now I'll jump down into locations. Make sure that the location that you're targeting is correct. Make sure that any excluded locations are correct. And then you have, ad schedule devices. I don't know that I'm going to pay a ton of attention to that. Change history could be really relevant depending on who's managing this and how often you feel like they should have been in it. And I just managed one campaign, and you can see that there are many potentially here. But I'm reviewing the one that's active. So I went over the search. Display is a little bit easier to review. But I hope that gives you a sense as to what it is that we do and why we do it. When we audit campaigns, we actually offer this as a lead magnet, so to speak. So I run Google Ads for a living. I own a little agency called Solutions 8. We might be the greatest Google Ads management agency on the planet. And we do what's called a free action plan. So we don't just evaluate your campaign and tell you what's wrong with it. We'll also tell you how to fix it with the hope that you're like, gosh, these guys are wicked smart. I should just hire them. So reach out to us, sol8.com. Sign up for your free action plan. And otherwise, if this video is of value, give me a little thumbs up. Comment if you have questions. I answer those personally. Subscribe, because I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers so I can go live. And you'll get a notification every time I shoot a new video, which happens daily, especially if you hit that little bell. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.